When my sister texted, "We're taking your beach house for the summer," I thought my phone had autocorrected something. But then I opened the family group chat and saw everyone celebrating like she'd just announced free pizza, as if my property was some kind of communal timeshare. That was the moment I knew my family had completely lost touch with reality. I'm Allison, 34 years old, and I work as a financial analyst here in Denver. Getting to this point wasn't handed to me on a silver platter. I spent 7 years grinding through 2 jobs while finishing my degree at night, living on ramen and coffee, watching my friends go out while I stayed in with textbooks. 5 years ago, after saving every spare dollar, I finally bought my dream, a cozy beach cottage in Cape Cod. It wasn't a mansion, but it was mine. Every creaky floorboard, every sunset view from that little deck, every grain of sand that somehow always ended up in the entryway, it all represented every sacrifice I'd made to get there. My parents, Dorothy and Frank, still live back in Kansas City, where I grew up. I've always been the reliable one, the one who showed up, the one who handled things. My younger sister, Vanessa, though, she's been the family princess since birth, dramatic, impulsive, and spoiled in ways that would make reality TV stars jealous. When Vanessa caught a cold, Mom would practically set up a hospital wing in the living room. When I graduated top of my class, I got a "good job, sweetie," while Dad asked if I'd seen Vanessa's new Instagram post. For years, I'd been the family's emergency fund. When Mom's car needed repairs, I paid. When Dad's dental work wasn't covered by insurance, I covered it. I even bailed Vanessa out when she forgot she had bills to pay after booking a spontaneous girls' trip to Miami. They always thanked me with hugs and sweet words and promises to pay me back soon. But respect? That never came. So when that text popped up on my screen, "We're taking your beach house for the summer," followed by a parade of palm tree emojis, champagne glasses, and "Family Vacation 2025. I just sat there on my couch, staring at my phone, trying to decide whether to laugh, cry, or hurl it through my television screen. I took a deep breath and tried to convince myself this was some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe Vanessa was asking in her own weird way. Maybe she'd accidentally sent it as a statement instead of a question. Maybe I was having a stroke and hallucinating the whole thing, but no. The messages kept coming. Cousins were chiming in about bringing their kids. My aunt was asking about the nearest grocery store. Someone was already planning a 4th of July barbecue on my deck. They were dividing up bedrooms like they were planning a college spring break trip, and not one person had actually asked me if this was okay. Would they really show up without my permission? Would my own family really be that entitled, that oblivious, that bold? I was about to find out just how far they'd go. At first, I tried to be reasonable, maybe too reasonable. I typed out a calm, measured response. "Hey everyone. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but you can't just decide to use my house. I have plans this summer, and I need you to ask before making these kinds of assumptions." I hit send and waited, actually believing that would be the end of it. The replies came within seconds, like sharks smelling blood in the water. "Mom, Allison, honey, it's family. We should all get to enjoy it together. Dad, don't be difficult. This is about bringing everyone closer. When did you get so selfish? Vanessa, you literally never use it. We'll take super good care of everything, I swear. 2 hearts. I felt my jaw tighten as I scrolled through message after message. My uncle was talking about teaching his kids to surf. My cousin was asking if the Wi-Fi was good enough for her to work remotely. Another cousin was requesting I leave the kayaks unlocked in the shed. They were planning their invasion like it was D-Day, and I was just supposed to smile and hand over the keys. I tried again, this time more firmly. "The house is mine. I pay the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, the maintenance. This isn't a family vacation rental. You need to respect that." The response was immediate and brutal. "Dad, we're not strangers, Allison. We're your family. Stop acting like you're too good for us. My aunt, your grandfather would be so disappointed in your attitude. Vanessa, wow. Didn't realize you were this selfish. Guess all that money changed you." Mom delivered the final blow. "You know what, Allison? You can't take that house with you when you're gone. Maybe you should think about what really matters in life, things or family." I read that last message 3 times, feeling something crack inside my chest. Not my heart breaking, something harder, colder. My patience. My willingness to be the doormat. My need for their approval. They'd taken so much from me over the years. My time, my money, my energy, my peace of mind. And now they wanted to take the one place where I felt truly free, the one thing I'd earned completely on my own. I closed the group chat, set my phone face down on the coffee table, and stared at the wall of my Denver apartment. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from rage. Pure, crystallized rage. For years, I'd been their emotional ATM and their personal problem solver. I'd swallowed my resentment, made excuses for their behavior, convinced myself that family meant sacrifice. But this was different. This wasn't them asking for help. This was them believing they were entitled to everything I had, simply because we shared DNA. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every guilt trip, every borrowed dollar never repaid, every time my achievements were overshadowed by Vanessa's latest drama. By 3 in the morning, I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Focused. Determined. If they wanted to play games with my property, fine. But they were about to learn that I'd gotten very good at strategy over the years. The next morning, I called my boss and took 3 days off. Then I threw clothes into a suitcase, grabbed my laptop, and headed for my car. I had a 23-hour drive ahead of me to Cape Cod, but I didn't care. They wanted my beach house. They were going to get a surprise they'd never forget. The drive to Cape Cod gave me plenty of time to think and to plan. By the time I crossed into Massachusetts, I had a complete strategy mapped out in my head. No more Ms. Nice Daughter. No more letting them walk all over me. This ended now. I arrived at the cottage just as the sun was setting over the water, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Standing on the weathered deck, smelling the salt air, listening to the waves crash against the shore, I felt my resolve harden. This place was my sanctuary, my reward for years of grinding and sacrifice. Nobody was taking this from me. Nobody. The next morning, I got to work. First stop, Cape Security Solutions, a local company I'd researched during my drive. The installer, a guy named Mike with a Boston accent thick enough to cut with a knife, took one look at my house and nodded approvingly. Smart move, getting a system out here. You'd be surprised how many vacation homes get broken into. Oh, I'm not worried about strangers, I said, and left it at that. By noon, my cottage had motion-activated cameras covering every angle: front door, back door, both sides of the house, and the deck. High definition, night vision, the works. The system connected directly to my phone, giving me live feeds and instant alerts. Mike also installed smart locks on all the doors, programmed to my phone and my fingerprints only. The old mechanical locks my parents had keys to? Completely bypassed. You want an alarm system too? Mike asked. Something that'll wake up the whole neighborhood? I smiled. Absolutely. He installed sensors on every door and window, all connected to a central alarm panel that would scream loud enough to be heard in the next county if anyone tried to force entry. The system would also automatically alert the local police department. Mike programmed it all and showed me how to control everything from my phone. You're all set, he said, packing up his tools. This place is locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Perfect. Next, I called a locksmith and had every lock in the house changed, not just rekeyed, completely replaced. The spare keys I'd given my parents years ago, back when I still trusted them. Useless pieces of metal now. I kept only 2 copies of the new keys, one on my keychain, one hidden in a location only I knew. My final touch was purely for my own amusement. I ordered a custom doormat online with rush shipping. When it arrived the next day, I placed it right in front of the door. It read, "Welcome to Paradise, by invitation only." That evening, I sat on the deck with a glass of wine, watching the sunset and testing the camera feeds on my phone. Crystal clear images from every angle. The motion sensors were sensitive enough to catch seagulls walking across the deck. The smart locks worked flawlessly. The alarm system was armed and ready. I felt something I hadn't experienced in years when it came to my family: complete control. Before leaving to drive back to Denver, I did one more thing. I printed out a simple sign and taped it to the inside of the front window, visible from outside: private property, no trespassing, police will be called. Maybe they'd see it. Maybe they wouldn't. Either way, they'd been warned. The drive back to Denver felt different than the drive out. Lighter somehow. I'd spent years accommodating their demands, bending over backward to help, sacrificing my own needs for their convenience. Not anymore. I'd drawn a line in the sand, or in this case, in Cape Cod beach sand, and I was ready to defend it. When I got home, I didn't say a word in the family group chat. Let them think I was sulking or ignoring them. Let them continue making their plans. The group chat kept blowing up with messages about who was bringing what food, what time everyone would arrive, whether someone should pick up extra beach chairs. I just watched and waited, checking my camera feeds daily, making sure everything was working perfectly. 2 weeks later, it happened. Vanessa posted in the group chat, "We're heading out tomorrow morning. 6-hour drive, but so worth it. Beach house, here we come. Beach with umbrella, water wave, sun," Mom added. "Can't wait. I'm bringing my famous potato salad and Dad's grilling burgers. My cousin, the kids are so excited. They've never been to the ocean." I read every message with a growing smile. Then I opened my laptop, logged into the security system, and made sure all the cameras were recording. I set my phone to high volume so I wouldn't miss any alerts, and then I poured myself a glass of wine, ordered a pizza, and settled in for the show. How far would they actually go? All the way to my front door? Would they really try to break in? Or would common sense finally kick in somewhere along that 6-hour drive? I was about to find out. The next afternoon, I was at my desk pretending to work when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I immediately opened the camera app, and there it was, the moment I'd been simultaneously dreading and anticipating. Point three cars were pulling into my driveway. Vanessa's white Jeep Cherokee led the parade, followed by Dad's silver Ford F-150, and finally my cousin Brandon's blue Honda Pilot packed with kids' faces pressed against the windows. I watched as they parked in a neat line, completely blocking my driveway like they owned the place. My heart was pounding, but not from fear. From pure, electric anticipation. Car doors opened, and people spilled out like clowns from a circus car. I counted them on the screen: Mom, Dad, Vanessa, her husband Kyle, Brandon and his wife Stephanie with their 3 kids, and even my Aunt Carol, who must have been pushing 70 and had no business taking a 6-hour road trip. They stretched their legs, laughing and chatting, completely oblivious to what was about to happen. Dad opened his truck bed and started unloading coolers. Brandon's kids were already running toward the beach with inflatable pool toys. Vanessa pulled out what looked like at least 4 suitcases from her Jeep. Apparently she'd packed for a month-long stay, not just a summer weekend. My phone was still in my hand, camera feed crystal clear, as Vanessa confidently marched up to my front door. She was wearing designer sunglasses and carrying a beach bag that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. I zoomed in on the camera feed, not wanting to miss a single second of this. She reached into her bag and pulled out a key, the spare I'd given her 3 years ago when I still thought she was someone I could trust. She slid it into the lock. Turned it. Nothing happened. She tried again, jiggling the key, pushing on the door like maybe she just wasn't doing it right. I could see her mouth moving, probably muttering something annoyed. Dad noticed and walked over, his own key already in hand. He tried his. Same result. Nothing. The locks I'd installed didn't even acknowledge those old keys existed. That's when I saw it, the exact moment they noticed the camera mounted above the door. Vanessa looked up, froze, and I watched her face transform from confusion to recognition to something that looked like fear. She grabbed Dad's arm and pointed. Mom came running over. They all stared up at the camera like it was an alien spacecraft that had just landed on my porch. My phone started buzzing. First Vanessa, then Mom, then Dad, all calling at the same time. I let every call go to voicemail, watching the feed instead. This was better than any movie I'd ever seen. Then the texts started flooding in. Vanessa, Allison. What did you do? Why won't our keys work? Mom, honey, there's been some kind of mistake. The locks must be broken. Can you call a locksmith? Dad, Allison Marie Henderson, you call me back right now. I watched them on camera, frantically trying their keys again, knocking on the door like that would somehow magically open it. Brandon had walked over now, looking confused. Aunt Carol was fanning herself with a magazine, probably complaining about the heat. The kids were still running around on the beach, blissfully unaware that their vacation was about to be canceled. That's when I decided it was time. I typed out one message and sent it to the family group chat. You are trespassing on private property. The house is equipped with security cameras and an alarm system. If you attempt to enter without authorization, the police will be automatically notified. I suggest you start your 6-hour drive home now. I hit send and watched their phones light up, one by one. Would they listen? Would they leave? Or would they push further and find out just how serious I was about protecting what was mine? The silence that followed my text was beautiful. Through the camera feed, I watched them all stare at their phones, reading my message over and over like the words might change if they just looked hard enough. Vanessa was the first to break the silence. Even without audio, I could tell she was shouting. Her arms were flailing, her face was red, and she kept pointing at the door, then at her phone, then at the camera. Dad's expression had gone from confused to furious in about 3 seconds flat. My phone exploded with messages. Vanessa, are you kidding me right now? We drove 6 hours. Dad, this is absolutely ridiculous. Open the door this instant. Mom, Allison, please. The children are here. They were so excited. You're breaking their hearts. Aunt Carol, I can't believe you'd be this cruel to your own family. Brandon, dude, seriously? My kids have been talking about this trip for weeks. I watched them argue on my porch for a full 10 minutes. Dad kept trying his key again and again, like maybe the lock would just give up and let him in out of exhaustion. Vanessa was on her phone, probably trying to call me for the 20th time. Mom was crying real tears or performative ones. I couldn't tell through the camera and honestly didn't care. Then Vanessa did something that made my blood boil. She tried the windows. She actually walked around to the side of the house and tried to see if any of the windows were unlocked, jiggling each one while Kyle stood there watching her. That was it. That was the line. I grabbed my phone and typed, Vanessa, step away from the windows now. That is illegal attempted entry. The cameras are recording everything, and I will press charges if you continue. She read the message and actually flipped off the camera. My sister, the woman I'd bailed out financially more times than I could count, just gave my security camera the middle finger. I called the non-emergency police line. "Hi, I'm calling about a trespassing situation at my property in Cape Cod," I said calmly to the dispatcher. "I'm in Denver right now, but I can see multiple people on my security cameras refusing to leave my property. I've asked them to leave, and they're now attempting to force entry through the windows. We'll send an officer to check it out," the dispatcher said. "What's the address?" I gave her the information, thanked her, and went back to watching the feed. This was about to get very interesting. 10 minutes later, 10 glorious minutes of watching my family argue and complain on my porch, a Cape Cod police cruiser pulled up. A female officer got out, and I watched the entire dynamic change instantly. Dad straightened up and put on his reasonable concerned father face. Mom wiped her tears. Vanessa crossed her arms defensively. The kids finally came running back from the beach. Sensing something was wrong, through the camera, I could see the officer talking to them, then pointing at the no trespassing sign I'd taped to the window. Dad was gesturing, probably spinning some story about a misunderstanding, about family, about how his daughter had surely made a mistake. Then the officer pulled out her radio, spoke into it briefly, and I got a call from an unknown Cape Cod number. "Hello. Hi, is this Allison Henderson? This is Officer Martinez with Cape Cod PD. I'm at your property right now with several people who claim to be your family. They say there's been a misunderstanding about them staying here." "No misunderstanding, officer," I said clearly. "I am the sole owner of that property. Those people are my family, but they do not have permission to be there. I explicitly told them they could not use my house. They drove there anyway and are now refusing to leave." There was a pause. "So you want them removed from the property?" "Yes, please." "Understood. We'll take care of it." I watched through the camera as Officer Martinez walked back to the group and delivered the news. The transformation was instant and spectacular. Dad's face went purple. Vanessa threw her hands up. Mom started crying harder. Aunt Carol looked like she might faint, but they started walking back to their cars. Slowly, reluctantly, like children being told they couldn't have dessert, but they walked. They loaded their coolers back into the trucks. They deflated the pool toys. Brandon's kids were crying now, actually crying, which made me feel a tiny twinge of guilt until I remembered that none of this would have happened if their parents had just respected my very simple boundary. Within 20 minutes, all 3 cars were backing out of my driveway. Officer Martinez stayed until they were all gone, then looked up at the camera and gave a small nod before getting back in her cruiser and leaving. I sat back in my chair, hands shaking slightly, and realized I was smiling. Actually smiling. When was the last time standing up to my family had made me feel anything other than guilt? But the day wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. The phone calls started before they'd probably even reached the highway. Dad first, his voicemail so angry I could practically see the veins popping in his forehead. "You had the police remove your own family? Your mother? Your sister? Have you lost your mind? Don't bother calling us back. You're not welcome in this family anymore." Then Mom, sobbing, "How could you do this to us? All we wanted was to spend time together as a family. You've changed, Allison. You've become cold and selfish, and I don't even recognize you anymore." Vanessa sent texts instead of calling, probably too angry to trust herself to speak. "You're dead to me. Dead. I hope you enjoy that stupid house, because you'll be there alone for the rest of your miserable life." My phone didn't stop for hours. Cousins I barely spoke to were suddenly concerned about my mental health. Aunt Carol sent a long message about how disappointed my late grandmother would be. Even family friends I hadn't heard from in years were weighing in, having apparently been filled in on the terrible thing Allison did. I read every message, every voicemail, every Facebook comment on the family page I'd forgotten I was part of. And you know what I felt? Relief. Pure, crystalline relief. For the first time in my adult life, I'd set a boundary and actually enforced it. I hadn't caved to the guilt trips. I hadn't apologized for standing up for myself. I hadn't let them steamroll over me like they'd been doing for years. That night, I opened a bottle of wine, ordered Thai food, and watched a movie without checking my phone every 5 minutes. The silence was incredible. No one asking for money. No one guilting me about not doing enough. No one treating my accomplishments like minor inconveniences in the Vanessa show. Just peace. The next few weeks were blissfully quiet. The family group chat continued without me. I'd muted it, but hadn't left, curious to see what they'd say when they thought I wasn't paying attention. They complained about me, naturally. Vanessa posted a long rant about toxic family members who value material things over relationships. Dad called me ungrateful at least a dozen times. Mom played the victim, wondering where she'd gone wrong raising me, but here's the thing, none of them apologized. Not one. Nobody acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, trying to take over someone's property without permission was wrong. In their narrative, I was the villain for not sharing, and they were the victims of my selfishness. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into a major project, pulling long hours, actually enjoying the distraction. My colleagues noticed I seemed lighter somehow, less stressed. My boss even commented that my work had improved, which was saying something since I'd already been doing well. 2 months after the beach house incident, as I'd started calling it in my head, I took a week off and drove back to Cape Cod alone. I spent 7 days doing exactly what I wanted. I read 4 books. I took morning walks on the beach. I ate lobster rolls and clam chowder. I sat on the deck at sunset with a glass of wine and felt genuinely content. No drama. No demands. No guilt. Just me and the ocean and the life I'd built for myself. On my last evening there, sitting on the deck watching the sun paint the sky orange and gold, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. Can we talk? Please? I think we need to have a real conversation. No fighting. Just talk. Your father and I would like to drive to Denver next month if you're willing to see us. I stared at the message for a long time, listening to the waves crash against the shore. Was this genuine? Or was it another manipulation, another attempt to guilt me back into my old role as the family ATM and emotional support animal? There was only one way to find out. But if I agreed to meet them, it would be on my terms. Completely on my terms. I took a deep breath and typed back, okay? But we meet at a restaurant, not my apartment. And if anyone ambushes me or makes this about guilt tripping, I'm leaving immediately. Her response came quickly. That's fair. Thank you. I love you, honey. I didn't respond to that last part. Love was just a word if it wasn't backed up by respect. And respect was exactly what I was going to demand. 6 weeks later, I sat in a corner booth at the Nickel, a quiet restaurant in downtown Denver, watching my parents walk through the door. They looked smaller, somehow older. Or maybe I'd just finally stopped seeing them through the eyes of a daughter who needed their approval. Mom slid into the booth across from me, Dad beside her. Nobody hugged. Nobody did the fake cheerful greeting thing. We just sat there, the weight of everything that had happened hanging in the air between us. Thank you for meeting us, Mom said finally, her hands folded on the table. She looked nervous. Good. She should be. I almost didn't come, I said honestly. I figured this was going to be another intervention about how I need to be more giving, more understanding, more whatever it is you need me to be. Dad opened his mouth, but Mom put her hand on his arm, stopping him. That's not why we're here, she said. We're here to apologize. Really apologize. For everything. I leaned back, crossing my arms. I'm listening. For the first time in my memory, my mother looked genuinely ashamed. We took advantage of you, Allison. For years. We treated you like a bank account, like a safety net, like someone who would always just handle things. And then with the beach house, she shook her head. That was the final straw, wasn't it? We didn't just ask to borrow something. We tried to take it. You didn't try, I corrected. You announced you were taking it. Like I didn't even get a say in my own property. Dad finally spoke up, his voice rough. I was angry at you for a long time. Felt like you embarrassed us, making us look like fools in front of the police. But your mother made me think about it, really think about it. And she was right. We were trying to take something that wasn't ours. We were treating you like you didn't matter. Like your hard work didn't matter. I felt something loosen slightly in my chest, but I wasn't ready to forgive yet. Not completely. Do you know how many times I've helped you financially over the years? They shook their heads. I do. I kept track. $12,000, Dad. 12,000. And you know how many times you've paid me back? 0. How many times you've even acknowledged it as a loan instead of a gift? 0. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We took advantage of your kindness. It wasn't kindness, I said quietly. It was me desperately trying to earn your respect. Your approval. Because no matter what I did, it was never enough. Vanessa could barely hold down a job, but when she did, you threw her a party. I got a master's degree, and you asked if I'd remembered to call her on her birthday. The words I'd been holding in for years just poured out. All the resentment, all the hurt, all the times I'd felt invisible in my own family. And they sat there and took it, really listened for once, without interrupting or making excuses. When I finally finished, exhausted from the emotional purge, Mom reached across the table. She didn't grab my hand, she just laid hers on the table, palm up and offering. You're right about all of it, she said. We favored Vanessa because she was loud and demanding, and you were capable and independent. We made you feel like your success meant you didn't need us, didn't need our attention or praise. That was wrong. So wrong. Where's Vanessa in all this? I asked. Dad sighed. She's not ready to apologize yet. Still thinks you overreacted. But she'll come around eventually. She's stubborn like you. I almost laughed at that. Vanessa and I were nothing alike. But I let it go. Here's what needs to happen if we're going to have any kind of relationship, I said, pulling out my phone and opening a note I'd written. First, no more asking me for money. None. If you have an emergency, you figure it out like adults. Second, my beach house is mine. If you want to visit someday, you ask me first, and you accept whatever answer I give. Third, we start fresh. No more bringing up old grievances, no more playing favorites, no more guilt trips. And fourth, Mom asked gently. Fourth, you go to family therapy. You and Dad and Vanessa. Not me, I've done enough work on myself. You three need to figure out why this family dynamic got so toxic. I'll wait to see if anything actually changes before I consider joining. They exchanged a look, some silent conversation passing between them. Then Dad nodded. Okay, we'll do it. Really? Really, Mom said. We don't want to lose you, Allison. And we know we're this close to doing exactly that. We talked for another hour. It wasn't easy, and there were moments where old patterns tried to resurface. Dad getting defensive, Mom trying to smooth things over too quickly, but they caught themselves. They were trying. That was something. When we finally left the restaurant, Mom hugged me. It felt different than her hugs usually did. Less obligatory, more genuine. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm proud of the life you've built. I hugged her back, feeling the tiniest crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. That was 14 months ago. Today, I'm sitting on my deck in Cape Cod, watching the sunrise paint the ocean in shades of pink and gold. My coffee's getting cold, but I don't care. I've got my laptop open, finishing up some work before I take the day off to kayak and read on the beach. My phone buzzes. A text from Vanessa. Hey, I know you're at the beach house. I was wondering if maybe sometime this fall, Kyle and I could come visit, just for a weekend? If that's okay with you. I read it 3 times, looking for the catch, the manipulation, the sense of entitlement. But it's not there. It's just a simple request. I type back, let me check my calendar and get back to you. She responds immediately, thanks. And Allison? I'm sorry. For everything. I was a spoiled brat and you deserved better. I don't respond right away. I set my phone down and take a sip of my coffee, watching a family set up their beach chairs down the shore. Eventually, I'll probably say yes to Vanessa visiting. But not yet. She needs to understand that forgiveness isn't instant, that respect has to be earned back, that some boundaries are permanent. My parents did go to therapy. They actually went. They worked on their favoritism, their enabling, their tendency to take me for granted. We have dinner once a month now, always in public, always with clear expectations, but we have it. It's not perfect, but it's better. The locks on my beach house are still changed. The cameras are still running. And I've never given anyone new keys. Some people might think that's harsh. That family means unconditional access, unconditional forgiveness, unconditional sacrifice. But I've learned something important over this past year. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others is to say no. I finish my coffee, close my laptop, and grab my kayak from the shed. The ocean is calm today, perfect for a long paddle. As I push off from the shore, I think about how far I've come. How much lighter I feel without the weight of everyone else's expectations on my shoulders. The beach house stands behind me, secure and mine, cameras blinking in the morning sun. Inside, everything is exactly as I left it. No surprise visitors. No drama. No chaos, just peace. Hard-won, well-deserved peace, and honestly, that's worth more than any family vacation could ever be.